It looks good.
You should have waited to take that bite once it went off.
It is good.
What is it?
What's on it, Corey?
This is from a Portland place called Scotty's Pizza. It's sourdough. Oh, it's so good.
Ooh, looks good. Well, what's on
this one is lemon ricotta and caramelized onions.
Lemon ricotta, yum.
Lemon ricotta.
Nice.
And there's like sesame seeds on it. It's so good.
Could you push just a little bit of that through the microphone, Corey?
Yeah. Take a bite.
You're gonna get some grated ricotta.
Maybe.
This is why when we buy our microphones, we don't send them back to Black Hills. We just keep them because now it's covered in pizza grease.
Maybe we can be worse. Sponsored by Scotty's Pizza.
Oh, that would be amazing. Although I don't think they're really a sponsor kind of place. They're more like they need us to sponsor them.
Is it hot pizza or cold pizza, Corey?
Hot. I just heated it up. That's why I was late to the show, obviously.
Do any of you eat cold pizza? Any cold pizza?
Oh, yeah.
Fans?
Of course.
I think
sure.
Cold pizza is just like a whole nother flavor. It's the best.
Hey,
like,
standard
but it definitely
Hacker
depends
Flat
on what
gamer
type of
breakfast, cold pizza and warm flat soda.
Chicago pizza.
Warm
cold
flat
is
soda.
Like
I crossed the line there.
Beer.
Wait, somebody said
I
Chicago
I crossed the line at
Yes.
warm flat soda too. Yes, we're very spoiled food-wise in Portland, especially pizza-wise. It's probably one of the best pizza cities in the country.
So I've got a question. What does one eat at Hacker Space summer camp?
Oh God,
Nothing.
overpriced drinks.
Nothing. I didn't.
You eat the
There was a
drinks.
day I had donut holes, and that was it.
Donut holes and
Yeah,
nothing
that's
else.
all I had. It was like, so the last day, all I ate was donut holes, and then I was like gonna leave at 2, and then we found out that our competition had got to give away the black badge, which then made us wait all the way till 5. So I ate donut holes like at 7:30. It was rough.
Donut holes are good any time of the day. That's definitely true.
No. Not Dunkin' donut holes that are
Yeah.
probably.
I have yet to eat one good meal in Vegas. Actually, that's not true. Last year, I went to old Las Vegas and had this really good ramen, but that was the only good food I ate the entire week.
Have you been to the
Tacos
Mob
El
Museum
Gordo.
over there? Ooh,
There's no. Why are there no food trucks in Vegas? It's literally the best spot in the world for food trucks, and there's not a single one.
There was
What is
food
going
trucks.
on?
There was
The
food
trucks
trucks at the
would
venue.
melt in the heat.
Yep.
Come on. It was
Nah,
100
you got
in the
food
shade.
trucks in like Tucson, Arizona. It's gonna be fine.
You know, casino overlords don't want them there.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
I think
course.
that's.
Yeah,
I
I
think
gotta
that's,
say,
that's
as an
the
LA
problem.
rep, we got a good pizza game too. We got good pizza.
The
games
house
here. We
always
got
wins.
Chicago, New York, and everything in between. So
Oh, LA has everything. It's just an hour away in traffic.
Yeah.
That's-
Yep.
I can't argue against that one.
It's an amazing city. It's just hard to get around.
All right, you done your pizza?
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm not sure. I'll eat pizza while I'm hosting. It's fine.
Okay.
Just don't chew.
I'll
say
be
so.
like, "Welcome to Black Hills Pizza about the news." Am I hosting?
Whatever you
John's
do,
not gonna
don't
come.
suggest
No, John's
to
not
John that he open a pizzeria, okay? We're trying
John's
to get him
sick.
to not have any more business.
John's got Sturgis crud.
He's got
There's
instead of
con
hacker
crud
COVID,
there's
he has
Sturgis
biker COVID.
That's
Yes.
definitely the worst of the two COVIDs,
Well,
without a doubt.
Yeah, he was in Sturgis flipping burgers. Of course he has biker COVID.
Yeah. Roll the finger whenever you're ready. I'm
All
almost
right.
ready.
Here we
The
go.
new finger.
The new finger.
Hello and welcome to Black Hills Information Security's Talkin Bout News. It's August 12th, 2024. And we're here with the Hacker Summer Camp Report.
That's right. Who here went to Hacker Summer Camp?
1, 2,
got-
3. A nod from Bill. I'm counting it. Connor. Almost everyone.
Monday to Monday.
That's more than I thought.
It was rough.
Yeah, I didn't go this year.
I was just nodding to the other people who were.
You were like, I know you. I've seen you in real life.
I went for 10 days.
I'm sorry. Do you? Okay,
Every
Jay,
year.
just lead us
Why,
off with
Jay?
how that
Why?
feels.
It's way
Like
too-
this is now your therapy session. Please unload. What's going on?
I mean, first answer is after 10 days, here's how I feel. Right. I'm either asleep or dead. I'm not sure which it is.
You kept your
Um,
voice. You kept your voice. That's
I did.
impressive. How
I
did you
did.
do it?
So I teach a 4-day class at Black Hat, and I'm going to start teaching soon for Antisyphon. But in the 4-day class at Black Hat, there's something that I found when I first came back. The very first year I came back, like as a COVID thing, I brought HEPA filters for the room and humidifiers, and having a humidifier up with me, like on the at the stage or the table where I'm talking from. It was the first year I didn't lose my voice in Vegas, and I'm like, oh, holy hell! I need to just have a humidifier. So like now every year I bring a humidifier for at least those 4 days and the 2 before that we're prepping for the training. So for the first 6 of the 10 days, I've got a humidifier around, so I don't tend to lose my voice anymore. And I used to lose my voice every single year.
That's a
Jay-
pro tip.
Jay's too
Yeah.
Pro
clean.
tip.
He's got that green screen. Someone's weekend at Bernie's him right now. Like that's not the real Jay.
What?
Are you being
Oh,
puppeteered? Blink
Weekend
once
at
if you're being puppeteered. So, okay, is there anything notable?
Sorry,
Like, what
the
happened?
puppet
Last year there was a
apparently
bomb
couldn't-
threat. Like, what actually happened? Give me like the 3-minute rundown. What did Black Hills do at DEF CON? What else happened? Don't go into drama unless it's John Strand related
And juicy.
and juicy.
Well, actually, John Strand related, I encountered 2 different John Strands at the Jack Residers after party. So there were 2 John Strands there, both imposters, and both of them.
Did Operation Clone succeed, or what's happening?
I would assume so. I would assume so.
It was AI Strand next evolution.
AI Strand AI Strand for sure. And then they both had the famous hat too. Pretty decent cosplays, to be honest. I thought it was pretty great.
Cosplays?
Yeah,
Is it that level?
Yeah,
It's gotten that.
yeah.
Wow.
John
I
Strand
think multiple.
cosplayers for sure. That was definitely entertaining to see coming up through the line. We just handed out a lot of stuff. We handed out the Dark Knight Diaries comics. Jack was our second year of doing that, so that was really, really cool. Then we
Nice.
also were giving out these comics, which are actually great and cannot be timed better. Because I was there at the booth, and we also gave away a ton of the core decks of Backdoors and Breaches. I wish we brought more. We brought more than last year, and we ran out faster. So there was definitely a lot more traffic this year. I think 35,000 people showed up, something like that.
Wow.
I don't remember the numbers for last year, but we definitely had a lot of people show up.
At
at the
least
booth and
5.
buy.
35,000
least
straight
5.
to the Black Hills booth. They were all there. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
35,000 people showed up to say, hey, I'm John Strand. And only 2 of them actually were John Strand, and 0 of them were the real John Strand. So that's even more concerning.
Correct. Yep. And one of the coolest things I think I saw at DEF CON was in a comic we got. Oh, actually, I have a page right here. We had this little section in here, right, where it's like, there you can see it. I can see the Wi-Fi, right? And so we just thought that was a really cool tech. And Jason was here. He would tell you this exact same thing. I was walking around. They had an XR village there. There's a company there. I think their name is Bad VR. And they were like, we've developed a way for you to see Wi-Fi. So you like put these HoloLens on. I kind of wish they had a Vision Pro instead. But they had a HoloLens there. You put it on, and you can actually see the Wi-Fi moving around you in the area. And we were like, this literally is straight from the comic book. Happened to be right there when we were giving it out. It's just really, really cool to see that. I think
That is
it's
cool.
got great potential. But yeah, it's just, man, that's the most cyberpunk thing I think I've ever seen.
That's pretty cyberpunk. I think one of the perks of radio waves is you can't see them. Otherwise, you'd have to watch
Feature.
other people's, stuff all the time. And I don't think I want to know what someone's looking at all the time.
Are you sure? It's kind of interesting. It's just they simulate it as like a green lines moving through. Very,
Sure.
very cool.
That is cool. All right. What actual security stuff happened? Was there any sick 0 days dropped or anything? Did anyone get fired from their sweet job at Salesforce or anything?
There was the Syncclose or the AMD bug. AMD had, I think in their, gosh, what chip was it? It was like in their, whatever chip has their firmware. It had extra room in the memory for backwards compatibility, and researchers found a way with, if you have, kernel level privileges, you can write to that space. And you could put at like the -2 ring, you could put boot malware on the system. The only way to determine if you're infected is to actually like physically access the chip. Yeah. They didn't release a POC because they're still working on it.
Interesting. So is
Yeah,
it all AMDs? It says hundreds of millions. So I feel like it's got to be all or almost all.
It says all of them going back to 2006, or virtually all of them going back to 2006, and possibly earlier.
Which is horrible news for me because I'm a big AMD fanboy. So
that's okay. I mean, you can have a secure processor these days. You just have to either lose 50% Intel performance, or I guess throw your AMD chip out the window. I don't know.
It
says unfixable, so that's fun.
Yeah, I was completely we were joking about it earlier too. I was joking with a friend of mine. We were kind of talking about different CPUs architecture. I said, well, at least I don't have to worry about burning my own CPU, but now I got to worry about an empty memory space sitting there, ready to just be.
You want to know?
Have malware thrown into it.
Maybe this is just my personal hot take, and this is probably going to make some people mad, but I'm going to do it anyway because this is a podcast, and that's what podcasts are for.
That's what you're for.
I think Windows. Okay, I personally only use Windows for two things: hacking other people and gaming. And I assume both cases, those PCs are compromised from the start to the finish. I don't put anything. I don't put any of my personal accounts or data on anything with a Windows operating system on it personally. And so my gaming computer, I just assume it has malware. Either it's a it's either an anti-cheat rootkit that I got because I had to install that for some game, or it's an AMD hardware vulnerability. So I don't know.
So if you get hacked, all they're getting is your Steam account, pretty much.
They're getting my Steam account. Yeah. I mean, I know some people do secure Windows. You go to privacy.sexy, you download 15,000 lines of bash scripts or whatever, batch scripts, and then you just rip Windows into small little pieces. But is anyone going to do anything about this? Probably not, right? If it's virtually unfixable.
They said they're working on it in the article that Ryan posted, and then they asked them not to release the POC yet because they're working on it. The big thing is they are patching it, especially even for embedded products, which I thought was pretty crazy.
And it affects Linux too, so it's not just Windows.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. So is it a rootkit or a bootkit or both?
It said if you got root on Linux, if you got to anywhere. Sorry, one more time. If you had a kernel level vulnerability that you could use, then you'd be able to place this. And then I think the idea is a rootkit/bootkit. It's bootkit, so it's persists past. It's not stored on the hard drive; it's stored on the chip. And
right,
that's.
I mean, I guess cynically, I'm just like, is anyone going to bother writing the bootkit for the 15 Ubuntu users they would compromise? I don't know. Maybe. I think the bootkits I think the bootkits that are going to get weaponized are going to be targeting Windows. I mean, not to say Macs can't get malware, Linux can't get malware. Obviously, it totally can. But if I'm a threat actor writing something to make money, I ain't targeting Linux. I might target Mac.
I don't know. Ransomware sounds great here. Everything. And
but you're going to ransomware someone who can't even afford an operating system. They definitely couldn't afford a ransom payment. They're like, sorry.
Didn't choose their operating system for Steam Decks.
That's true. That's a good point. And that is true. There's the handheld gaming market, like the Windows.
Or televisions.
Does this affect the ARM, the AMD ARM stuff, like the ROG Ally or the Legion Go or the Steam Deck or any of those?
Those aren't ARM, are they? They're the
or are they x86?
The Z1 processor in all three of those is. It's really nice, and I think it's been compared to the 8870U. Like, no, it's Intel. It's
It's
Intel.
x86. Gotcha.
It's x86 with a really,
Well, that's
really great
fun.
branding.
That's the assumed compromised machine that I assume it came with malware on it. But those things are cool, and that would suck to have that thing have a bootkit. I'd be like, darn, my games, they don't boot anymore. But yeah, you're right. Steam Deck. I kind of forgot about that. People are all over that. That's like a very popular thing now. Good point. All right, what else happened?
Should we talk about the hotels?
Go ahead. Tell us about the hotels.
The hotels. I didn't see any of the actual news stories in the stream, so you're going to have to Google real quick, Ryan. But several hotels, but I know the main one being Resort World, actually started searching individuals' rooms while the con was going on, and then like forcing their way in and saying they're going to throw people out, trying to pretend like they are being hacked, or trying to protect themselves from being hacked. But honestly, like, if you were to go into one of those rooms, how are you going to tell? Like, everyone there is going to have everything there to hack. So it's like, what are you looking at? Like, I put my computer to sleep. You're not going to be able to look.
This is what I found.
I
Children.
was told by someone who was at Resort World that when you got there, they asked you which conference you were going to.
They did.
If you told them DEF CON, then you got put on a list. If you told them Black Hat, you did not.
So how do I decide which rooms they're going into?
If you were wearing a blazer and loafers, they did not raid your room. That's what I'm saying.
That was the criteria to get past it.
So all the salespeople and the business people like got to escape it, but yeah. But
Which they're the ones with all the malware on their computers. Anyway.
There was
yeah, but they didn't bring flipper zeros, so they're safe. They must not be bad. They must not be up to no good if they don't have flippers.
They didn't bring flipper zeros, and they didn't bring lockpicks.
DEF CON did make a statement about it at the very end during the closing ceremony, saying that they were going to write something about it, but they were waiting until everybody left Vegas.
Right.
So no one got kicked out.
Because they don't want to make people mad.
Exactly,
they don't want to.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
I got you.
Do it later, but
okay. So
it was interesting stuff.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Another story I heard from. I actually was there when it happened, but I was walking into the conference with Deb and Jason, and there was a security guard for the convention. Not one of the goons, just one of the security guards. And we heard him say to one of the guys, like, "Don't let those hackers get close to you. They can steal your RFIDs." I just thought that was so funny. I mean,
it is
true, but it's just it's like this it's like to them it's like a mystical thing, and it's like
I thought that was going to be I thought it was going to be don't go up to them because they stink. Don't let them get close to you because they stink.
I will tell you this, it was not that stinky this year. I was very surprised. I only caught like maybe 2-3 whiffs the whole time.
2-3 whiffs. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay.
So Babak. So I will say this, Babak Javadi, from the core group, he had something. He had a talk, and there was at least one other person involved in this project. So I apologize that I'm not remembering who, but they did a talk like 2 years ago or so, where they'd taken a, I think they probably taken a Proxmark and a Tastic, and they'd wired it together with a Raspberry Pi. And so their deal was basically like they had a video where you're like walking toward a person. The card, that person's card is captured at distance, at range, immediately pushed onto the Proxmark for cloning. And then as you're walking up to the door, the Proxmark's already set up in that mode for you to boom, open that door. And anyway, man, anybody sees that video, I'm like, yep, okay, yeah, maybe. Like if you saw it and didn't understand, you'd be like, yes, hackers with their hand can clone your card at distance.
Yep. Yeah. It's
hey,
the force.
Jay, you want to do that again with just your hand? We can use that for our show opening, maybe.
Wait, is this
hackers with just their hand?
Do it again.
Your hand is fading out.
It's even cooler that way.
Okay. Let me try. Hackers with just their hand can clone your card.
Hackers aren't married
in the wrong place.
anyway. Okay, so this is a legitimately though, what is this? Is this a physical security thing? Is this like, did they realize they have flat networks that are mapped to every room? Like, what is like the hotel's real concern, or is it just totally like dog
It's
and pony
called
show?
profiling, Corey. It's called profiling.
Yes, but we profile for a reason. What is the reason?
What you don't know. You fear
what
you
is
don't
the
know.
point of it?
Yeah.
I know one group, at least the Reddit post, if everyone else has read that, because that's the first thing I saw. They actually didn't let them in at first because they wanted to explore what their rights were at the time. And then they said the security guards were getting ready to just knock the door down and claiming they're going to call the cops and push them out. So the overall suggestion that if anybody got knocked, just let them in. That's if you want to at least have somewhere to stay for during DEF CON.
That's, I mean, people are talking about the MGM.
I was gonna go to Kelly. What do you think about that? I don't.
Oh, geez. So you know what I was
Put you on
thinking
the spot.
is, where there's smoke, there's fire. And if you've been around, like I've been around InfoSec for a long time and DEF CON, there's been shenanigans in years past where hotels have had damages to elevators, displays, that sort of thing. So I can understand from a hotel ownership point of view some concerns, but I absolutely do not condone going into somebody's room without cause. That bothers me tremendously.
Yeah. I mean, privacy is, I guess, an illusion when you're like in someone else's property with someone else's like legal agreement that you had to sign to be able to sleep somewhere. And I mean, the thing about Vegas is there's not a lot of alternatives. Like if you're trying to stay anywhere near the Strip, I mean, you don't have a lot of options.
There wasn't there a room block at the Resort World too? That's what I thought was pretty crazy, because if they had the room block, they already knew exactly where everyone was. Why not just like segment that network right when they get there, right? And just pump all of their out straight to the internet.
Yeah, I mean, Kelly's probably not wrong about minor like property damage, like the kiosks in the lobby, the business center wasn't working. But what is that, like 2 IBM computers from 1977? Like I don't know, it can't be that. I don't know. I could be wrong, but
I heard kind of rumors. Like I think this brings up the bigger question of why did we get kicked out of Caesars, or out of the property? Like why did Caesars boot DEF CON and force us to have to go to what turned out to be a much better venue, the convention center. I mean, the convention center, like the only downside is there's not a hotel attached to it, but it was much more spacious. It was like, I think everybody I talked to there was just really happy about the convention center because we weren't crowded. It was a really great space. But I'm wondering, like, I was talking with some folks and, just trying to figure out, like, just wondering, like, why did we get booted? Why did DEF CON, nearly get canceled, as it were? Since the every year they say, DEF CON's canceled or Burning Man's canceled. And the thought one of the thoughts that I heard come up a lot is after the MGM hack last year, that industry, especially in Vegas, is really concerned and likely, after the size of the MGM hack, they probably, their insurance companies may be really actually pushing for them to do something. I can't imagine how room searches would have been what the insurance company asked for, though. Like the idea of a room
due
search
diligence
is insane.
Yeah. What like GRC thing is that possibly, like, Kelly, is there anything
It's not
insurance
GRC.
related?
It goes back to the shooting at starts with the letter M.
Mandalay, the Mandalay Bay.
Mandalay. Thank you. It goes back to that.
Oh my God, really?
Yes. You remember
but
that,
that wasn't one of us. That wasn't somebody attending our
DEF CON.
conferences. That wasn't a hacker.
Right, but I think somebody jumped to conclusions and said, well, gun, shooter, lots of guns, hacker, strange and unusual equipment. There must be a correlation there. Ridiculous as that sounds.
It was more of they just got more power, so now they just flex it, right? Like they have this ability, now they just use it, just like any other organization that gets a little bit more power.
Yeah. I mean, okay, my hot takes are, one, the MGM hack, I mean, reading the tea leaves here, or reading between the lines, is this implying that like the MGM hack was done in person at DEF CON?
Yeah.
I don't
So
think that was
that's
the
what I
case,
felt, right?
right?
Like,
it had to
well,
be remote. It had to be.
It had to be remote, but if you also think about it, because Scattered Spider, right, there's been several rumors of like U.S. based ransomware group working with them, or at least English based. So there's probably at least a thought that they did a little bit of recon, maybe, but who knows, really? But
I mean,
they weren't there when they
It would
hacked
be
them,
crazy if that was the case. And then that takes us into, let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the entire Alfie, Scattered Spider, whatever, MGM hack took place in a room at DEF CON. Like, how... Okay, describe to me, as the minimum wage employee who has to do the checks, you walk into a hotel room. How do you identify immediately what's happening and whether it is impacting your cybersecurity? Like,
how many pizzas they order. That's really the threat.
How many USB
indicator.
drives you see laying around?
So every room right now,
Like
okay,
that.
currently this filter filters out 0% of rooms. They're all going to jail.
Well, just because there's been like so many people just saying that, you know, somehow the flipper zeros are evil. I'm going to go with like number of flipper zeros. If they walk into a room and there's more than two, maybe that's it. No, that's the thing, is like, how the hell, like, how would these room searches have done anything for them? The only one I get is I get it, Kelly, with the guns issue. That
Sure.
is
that what they're actually doing, though? They open the door, they say, there's no giant pile of guns, sir. All right, moving on. Like, there's how many thousands of rooms are they searching, and what are they looking? I don't know. It just seems like it's totally security theater, or I don't know, like the whole profiling thing. It's funny to me that they're willing to just deprioritize all these paying customers. Like, these are all, it's not like hackers don't have money to spend. I mean, I've seen some pretty ridiculous bar tabs run up at DEF CON, so I don't really get what the deal is there, but whatever.
So I stayed this year at the Alexis Park because I got confused about where DEF CON was being held, obviously. But DEF CON was the Alexis Park for a bunch of years, and like the story basically of DEF CON, and this is let's call this rumor or bad memory, but it was something like DEF CON, until the Alexis Park, DEF CON was never at a hotel for more than 1 year. And a bunch of those hotels afterwards got demolished, unrelated. And we got to Alexis Park, and, you know, it was, I mean, almost everybody attending the conference wasn't rowdy, but there were a few people who were, ripping payphones off the walls. Oh, crud, now I have to explain what a payphone is. There were these things.
A cell phone, but attached to the wall.
Remember.
Yeah, cell phone attached to the wall that was shared by everybody, and you put money in. So people were taking payphones off the walls. And they were throwing, laundry detergent into the pools, and like literally, the way I heard it, and please take this as rumor, like, was basically we were at the Alexis Park for years, and we weren't anywhere else for more than a year after. And Alexis Park was the first place I actually got to go to DEF CON at, and but the reason we got to stay at Alexis Park was somebody did the math and said, wait, whatever amount of damage these people do, first, the conference pays for it. And second, DEF CON was drinking more than any group that the resort center had hosted, except for, and I forgot, it was one of the military branches. It might have been like the U.S. Marines. And so they're like, wait, we're not, let them do whatever they want. They pay for the damages. And honestly, it's, like it was, I mean, the attendee, and I feel like the attendees used to be a little more rowdy, but it's not. Like, most of us are just
I just can't
going
imagine that hackers are doing more damage than just your average bachelor party. Like,
that's a really good point.
I don't know.
I think there's a fear element to it. They don't like you brought up with the flipper. The flipper is a great example of just a regular tool that blew up on the media because people were opening people's Tesla charging ports with it. People were copying RFIDs of hotel rooms, right? And they were putting it all in these places, and it became this sort of fear item where they're like, oh my gosh, this thing can like blow a hotel room up. It's like a remote control bomb, right? Like, people started getting afraid of it. And I think it's yes, like, we know, right? We're like, how are you going to, I can imagine security coming back. Is anybody we heard people might be injecting SQL in this room. People, they might not know, they don't know, but they don't. And so to them, they see a bunch of scary antennas attached to a little chipboard.
I need a shirt with that on it.
Yeah, they see two
Yeah,
laptops,
okay.
with, 10 USB
Yeah.
ports.
Yeah,
You
you're not
know?
wrong. You're not wrong. It is.
Well,
I think it's on the show. We underestimate the average person's knowledge of what hacking could actually do, and yeah, that is true.
Yeah, I'm going to show
And
you. This is what they think is scary.
For the record, you got to remember, unless it's different in Vegas than it is in California, most physical security people on staff are making minimum wage, maybe, and they're not exactly trained well to know what the heck is going on. So it's not like they would ever have a clue, and maybe the decisions that their managers are making are not ideal.
Sure,
Maybe.
but still, it had to be totally just security theater, because any hotel room you walk into with more than 3 people in it at DEF CON is going to look like crimes are being done. I mean, like, from a cybersecurity perspective.
But
And
what's the theater? Like, security theater at the airport is, arguably to have us all think that we're being made safe. But if the hotel's entirely filled with, is entirely filled with us, and they haven't invited the press, then
they're just saying be on your best behavior. We're
Like,
watching.
Yeah.
It's the perception of we're watching.
Oh.
Like it'd be funny. Honestly, it'd be like, let's just have a sign up at every hotel that says all packets are being captured and will be sent to the public on. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah,
whatever.
Secure your packets.
Like,
secure your packets.
Speaking of Raspberry Pis, they released a new chip over the weekend, and it was featured in the badge this year, which is really cool.
Oh, interesting. Please elaborate.
30 or something.
Raspberry Pi announced a new version of the Raspberry Pi, or is
right
it
there? Right there.
It's like 2040.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I only go during paper badge years, so I just have a bunch of garbage badges.
No, this is gonna be a Game Boy emulator. I just need a little bit of time, maybe over the weekend.
It is the coolest freaking badge, and
it really is.
Seems to be out of juice.
There's supposed to be some drama around the badge this year. Did you guys hear about that?
No, but is it John Strand related drama?
It's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
We'll allow it, but only for 2 minutes. Go.
Do you know the story?
I do, but I'm not. I'll let you speak to it, man. I feel
Okay.
like I've talked too much.
All right. Well, this is all like third-party knowledge, but apparently the contractor that DEF CON was using to make the badge, to actually fabricate and produce it, was continually asking for more and more money throughout the process. Eventually, DEF CON just canceled it and moved forward with it on their own. And then there was like this issue when, every year DEF CON talks about like how we made the badge and whatnot. There was that talk this year, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they still had the one of the engineers from the contractor come up, out of goodwill or courtesy, and there was like this whole scene where he demanded that security escort him off the stage, and I don't know, and the DEF CON posted about it and Reddit, and yeah. I was hoping somebody knew more about it than me.
Well, I read about it too. So there was a third-party contractor. I can't remember their name, and DEF CON kind of explained the whole situation where they had, typical project management style. Here are your milestones. Here's what we expect at each badge making process, and they kept missing the milestone to the point where DEF CON felt that they needed to go with another contractor, and then it was on site that they found the code still on the chip, and it became this giant situation of he said, she said. So I think for DEF CON organizers' purposes, they needed to set the record straight at exactly what the contractual obligations were.
So once again, we almost had crappy badges. Classic.
We never have crappy badges at Wild West Hackin' Fest.
Our badges rule.
That isn't actually true. One year we couldn't get all the components in time. Badges are hard.
I wasn't there yet.
Okay, we couldn't get
Badges-
all the components in time, but that was because of shipping problems related to COVID. That wasn't our
Sure,
fault.
but the point is
design
badges.
was awesome.
Badges are hard. Is the point?
Hey, does anybody have a badge Christmas tree?
What's Christmas?
I'm thinking about making a badge Christmas tree this year. What do you think?
I support
I
it.
like it.
That sounds good.
But anytime someone says, "Should I do the thing?" I always just say yes. That's my default.
I was trying to think if we could do like a few other like religions. Like, could we do Hanukkah?
A menorah of badges.
Menorah of badges.
Yeah.
Like,
Perfect.
and maybe
Festivus.
Festivus. Throw the badges in the garbage.
Oh,
Yule. We could burn the badges,
that's
You have an
also
effigy going up.
hazardous.
but it wouldn't actually burn it. We'd have a fake fire.
A digital
digital
fire.
Yeah,
Yes,
we could have a
digital
digital
fire.
fire.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
let's. I think you should do the Christmas tree one, but I think we should widen it to many of our religions.
Okay, that's
So-
fair.
In the world of traditional cybersecurity news, so people are somewhat up to date, there was a Cisco bug. Again, I guess we've got Cisco for SSM, which I don't even know what SSM is, but apparently it's called Cisco Smart Software Manager on-prem. There's public exploit code, maximum severity. We gotta love maximum severity. That should probably be my hacker name, but it's not. It enables, or I guess this tool helps manage accounts and product licenses. I guess it's being exploited in the wild, but I don't know how much people are exposing this or what kind of attack surface it has. But patch your Cisco SSM if you have it,
And you can spell it.
and you can spell it. And then did anyone read up on that 0.0.0? I'm just going to keep saying 0 day.
I did. That one's really
That's
cool.
pretty cool,
Actually,
I
I'm gonna-
thought.
Yeah. Did anybody else? I should.
All you. You're going to explain it very well.
Okay. Cool. Oh yeah, sure.
I'm
So
hyping
apparently
you.
0.0.0.0. There are a few different ways to interpret it. There's an RFC that basically says you should not route it anywhere, and you shouldn't do like it. There's RFC 1122 says what the notation is, and it says that things that this refers to the host itself, and that it shouldn't be sent as a source address except for the case where it's part of address self-discovery. All the major browsers major browsers were alerted. All of them are all of them were vulnerable. Or let me be clear with that. It was Chrome, WebKit, which includes Safari and Firefox. Chrome likely means Microsoft Edge. If I'm remembering correctly, Edge uses the Chromium. And Chromium-based browsers like Edge. So basically, all the browsers. So you can have a hostile page that has like a destination. I don't think it can be a source, but a destination of 0.0.0.0, and bypasses a tons of the protections that the browsers have against JavaScript code or what have you, using 127 dot anything, 127.0.0.1 or anything. So all the 127s are private, and so this is an evasion around whatever protections the browsers have against JavaScript using 0.0.0.0. One of the examples of what sites have done with 0.0.0.0, I'm hoping that after 10 days at Vegas, I'm remembering the right number of zeros, was that one thing the browsers would do, one thing that JavaScript would do, there was a big page that's mentioned in the article, it might be eBay, where the JavaScript code would try making connections to every port on 127.0.0.1. So all 65,536 ports, basically to fingerprint your computer, so they could figure
And
out
to
what
find
you were
all your Jenkins servers that you have listening locally and your JBoss. I mean, I feel like this.
Yeah.
They do give the
Well, they used-
statistic that it affects, or they estimate that it affects like less than 0.02% of current active websites, but there's a lot of websites, turns out. And so even if it's less than 2.02%, it's still, it says up to maybe 100,000 websites might use this as part of their source code. So it's not just
it's breaking.
Yeah, it might break some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they said it's a breaking change. That's been that's what the browser manufacturers are warning everybody. They've made a breaking change for that. But the idea like I guess fingerprinting the browser is not new, but fingerprinting the user by port scanning their machine, that's that was kind of funky while it existed, and not loving that it's back. And for any of us using it, if there is that vulnerable no password Jenkins server, I'm gonna go with the local Docker running on my machine. Although that's not on a port anymore, so that's not fair. But yeah, all that localhost fun.
Yeah, it's an interesting bug. Good find.
Okay.
Cool.
So
Anyone
I'm
else
curious.
have any articles? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
I want to bounce the whole intelligence bill that's talking about elevating ransomware to a terrorist threat. Has anyone taken a look at that?
I did a little bit. Is that the one that talks about specifically the financial sector?
Well, they're talking about calling out ransomware gangs because so much of ransomware is coming from hacker groups that are in other countries. They're really branding them as hostile foreign cyber actors, and it's more than just the financial. It's
So I guess it says, so the article says if approved or if granted or whatever, it would grant the U.S. intelligence community greater legal authority to go after ransomware threat actors. So I guess this is just authorizing more warrantless, illegal with quotes stuff against potentially foreign adversaries. What does this do on an operational level? Does it just say, okay, now you can use Cobalt Strike instead of Meterpreter? What is this? What does this do?
So I did some looking into this one, and I did compliance in a previous life. So it caught my attention when it started looking at some of the regulations around this, and didn't get to read through it. It's a massive document that's being sent to the Senate, first of all. So I didn't get a chance to read through all of it, but there's two main sections of that article, 513 and 514, that are actually applicable. But when you start reading the article, exactly what you said, though, is that some of the comments are, hey, this sends an important signal. Hey, this is, right, we're going to call out that this is an issue, or it's going to give us authority. The problem is all of the examples that they gave are things they're already doing. For example, they used one example of an international cooperation to bust one of the ransomware gangs that they had mentioned in this. Like, oh, this is an example of what we can do. You're already doing it, right? They're already doing it.
Yeah,
and so
totally.
It feels very much like a political type of argument. It mentions sanctions. Sanctions are already being done. It mentions, hey, there's an acknowledgement of damage. You don't need a law to do those kinds of things. So I'm kind of sketchy about where this was going.
It's an election year.
Yeah. This is so they can say that they've put this bill in, hey, look at what we did. We've got all these great new things that were great new things, right? New things that we're doing.
If it was funding, I would get it more than it just being posturing of think of the kids. Sign this. I don't know.
Yeah, there is.
Sorry, think of the bank accounts. Giant bricks of gold. I don't know.
I think they mentioned 565 million. I think for the intelligence committee, attendance committee, whatever it was. But going to the director, and really the only thing that it mentioned as far as criteria. So it mentioned two things. One's a report that had to be done within 6 months, 180 days. And the other was, hey, we need to acquire funds to the tune of, $500 billion.
Huh.
Okay, so
must be an
it's
expensive intelligence tool they're about to buy.
It's partly political grandstanding. It's partly a money grab to shunt more money into anti-terrorism agencies. And it's another example of legislators making laws about things that we're already doing and not enforcing.
Well, let's think about it actually, though, as take the face value. Is ransomware terrorism?
No, I don't. I think it's much closer to a heist, right? Well, okay, maybe I'm wrong, but if my understanding of what definition of terrorism is an act of violence, right? So it's an act of violence that's done for a political message. Now, there might be some hackers who are doing things for political messages. There's definitely been history of that, but I think a lot of these people, they just want the money from the company. My dad's company, for example, they had ransomware, and there was no political reason at all. They were just, give us $10 million, and I mean, maybe you can make the argument some ransomware is terrible. I would make the arguments that there's other hacks out there that are done for political reasons. Almost could be an act of digital terrorism, if you want to call it that. But
Sure.
I think ransomware, the money aspect, it's kind of like it almost reminds you of Die Hard, right? It's like it's all like this fake.
It's a heist.
It's actually just about the money. There's nothing
Right.
to do with the political.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, I definitely think it does, in some ways, it does have an impact to the average person. Like, now after 9/11 or whatever, security is different in airports. Now after Change Healthcare, prescriptions are different or whatever. Like, I know there are but at the same time, you're right. Terrorism isn't just trying to get a lot of money out of a company. It's a clearly motivated attack. And I think that is kind of where it gets into probably just political posturing of everything's terrorism, but nothing is. If I don't know, it's
best case scenario, you would be able to, you'd have an extra law that would have administrative overhead. At worst case scenario, it'd be something that could be misused.
Yeah. To say oh, well, you had this ransomware tool on your machine, so now you're a terrorist, and or you're going to get prosecuted 2x of what you were going to be before. But,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I also think recently with the CrowdStrike thing, it's not only ransomware that impacts everyday people, right? It's also CrowdStrike or IT outages or just general tech debt, right? IT stuff isn't all malicious, bad guys, terrorism. It's just sometimes computers break and we increasingly rely on computers and we're looking for something a lever we can pull to make that stop happening. But I don't know.
I
utility for, if you classify ransomware as terrorism, if any of the terrorism laws from the early 2000s can be applied, and there can be ways for the politicians or governments to use power that was used for kinetic warfare, to apply that to the cyber realm, and keep certain. I don't know. I think of Patriot Act, but I have no reason to think so. But
yeah,
I don't know.
it's a good article.
Hey, if I could steer the conversation back to ransomware for a second. I was a bit confused because I read an article about a proposed House bill that's going to require financial institutions to notify the Treasury Department before making a ransomware payment. And there's a big conversation, as you guys well know, and ladies, do you pay ransomware payments or not? So they're trying to propose that if the ransomware payment is more than $100,000, that they have to have prior approval by law enforcement. And this just makes me cringe thinking about all the small, medium-sized businesses that are desperate to get up and running and will gladly pay just to have their businesses back in their own hands again.
What do we have any data on what is the average ransom payment? Is it 100K? Where does that fall on the spectrum of ransom payments? I mean, obviously we know some high dollar ones like MGM. But how many I'm curious because, well, I do know that threat actors, they get into a company and then they ask or they search, what is your cyber insurance limits? And then they just request a ransom that is that number. So I'm curious, are cyber insurance limits usually over 100K?
I thought the DPIR is about 45,000-ish, if I recall.
Okay.
But
So less than 100K.
But Corey, how many small and medium-sized businesses are actually going to have cyberware insurance?
I mean, true, but how many of them are going to have 100K to throw out to a ransomware threat actor?
They may not have 100K, but of course, then again, I haven't seen any new stats, but 60% of small businesses that are hacked go under within a year for one reason or another. That statistic I know is several years old.
Yeah. So Kelly linked in the chat a pretty interesting article. Wow, the numbers are very high. They're much higher than I would have guessed. It says A cyber report by Coveware, which, I don't know what that is, so take it with a grain of salt, says that the average payment in 2024 so far has been $381,000 roughly, or $382,000. That's way more than 100K, and that would impact a lot of people who have already paid this year. But I mean, I guess I'm like, anytime law enforcement has to sign off, isn't that just making it impossible to do the thing? Like, what are you going to do? Text your local sheriff? Text your local sheriff? Hello, I need to make ransom payment. Can you approve? Yes or no? Like, how is that going to work? Or is it all FBI? I assume it's all FBI.
Well,
I don't know.
for some government agencies, or at least government related groups that have to deal with DoD or other, or what is it, DBIM, that there are some rules already in place so that they have to consider whether or not they can actually pay the payment, because it may go to a nation state. And so there's already rules in place for that.
It could be sanctioned. It could be North Korea.
Could be,
yeah,
exactly.
Makes sense.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess I think my take is similar to Kelly's, which is like, this seems like it would just hinder the incident response process even more. I know that most companies, when they get this far, they aren't negotiating their own ransom payments, and they're probably dealing with a firm. So I don't know. Maybe it's just trying to close. I think part of it is just control. The government wants to control like the avenues and make sure that they have the information. I think maybe they're worried that a lot of companies are just paying the ransom when it's not necessary, or whether they wouldn't actually have to. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think about all the repercussions. As long as it's staffed appropriately, I think most companies would rather have advice from the government about whether they should or shouldn't pay the ransom, right? But I will say, I think in practice, it's the government, right? You're going to report your breach, and they're going to be like, we have received your request. We estimate we should be able to respond within the next 6 months. And meanwhile, all your computers don't work, and you might be, getting into law enforcement or government trouble if you just go ahead and pay it. So I don't know.
Yeah. I'm really concerned about this one, to be honest. I think that, I can't decide whether it's, whether it's about just trying to shut down paying ransomware without having to, without having to ask for it. Sorry, without having to pass a law specifically to shut down ransomware payments, or if it's, I don't know. In some ways, best case, it's a way of basically trying to get breach notification
under wraps.
Under wraps. Through the indirectly in a way that won't get lobbied against. But I'm concerned about both this and the the story we started with about making something terrorism, because it feels a little bit like government overreach. I don't know. I hope it's just they're going to have a blanket. Sure, you can pay the ransom. Sure. But it's their way of trying to get
data
breach notification.
Yeah.
So Jay, when I listen to you, my prepper instincts are kind of kicking in a little bit. And,
please.
And I'm hearing,
Okay.
do you expect the government to provide your security controls? Do you expect the government to provide you water and safety in the event? I live in Florida, in a hurricane.
Okay.
So that's kind of the vibe I'm getting here.
Kind of don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you identifying as a prepper, or are you asking if I'm a prepper? I guess I'm not, but
I'm
maybe
identifying as a prepper.
Yeah, I know that as somebody who's lived in cities a lot, I really need to I should learn from the folks who are the preppers, because they're doing a much better job of being self-sufficient. You live in the city close enough to a grocery store, and you have about 2 days worth of groceries, or maybe it's a week at best, but you don't have that requisite, do we have enough water to get by for a week if the water went out and you couldn't get it. I could learn a lot from the prepper side.
So, okay, what is the GRC version of prepping? Do you just set up an escrow account that definitely isn't for ransomware and is off the books and is just ready to go?
Corey, come on now. The GRC response is cyber hygiene and putting in good controls in place, so you don't you minimize your opportunities to be ransomwared, if that's correct English.
Yeah, it is.
But as let's also tie in the whole CrowdStrike Delta thing. Bad things are going to happen. So do your best to prevent bad things, detect bad things, but then let's also detect, recover, and do a lessons learned.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it makes sense, but it's not a very fun prepper answer. Like I wanted to hear a hilarious answer where you're like, well, you go and you buy a bunch of cows, and then you can trade those cows to a sanctioned country because that doesn't violate sanctions, so it's fine. Although,
Okay.
on
So
another,
what I do?
okay,
What I do is I go to the Goodwill store and I buy a lot of old magazines and I cut out all the letters so I can send ransomware notes and nobody knows it's me.
really smart. Okay, so genuinely though,
I love
this
it.
does feel like okay. I might be stupid or wrong about this, but let's say the CEO, let's say Tim Apple, the CEO of Apple, as we know, that's definitely his real name. He gets actually kidnapped, like physically actually kidnapped. Apple can pay a ransom of whatever they want to get him back, right? There's no laws against normal ransom. It's just ransomware. Is that correct?
That would fall under DO insurance. So officers of companies have what's known as directors and officers insurance in the event that something happens to them.
So you're saying, so they could pay the ransom though, right? They wouldn't be violating some rules if they were to pay the ransom for a human being. It's only if it's ransomware that they would be subject to this.
That's a good question.
I just think it's interesting. Like any other time a company has to interface with criminals, there's no rules at all, or maybe there are. But it's just interesting that
in California there definitely is.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like the more the government is clearly it's a hot button issue, and they're willing to try to regulate it or control what's going on. But it's just interesting to me to think about like all these companies having to negotiate with potentially sanctioned countries or sanctioned individuals. Does that happen anywhere else, or is it just ransomware? Like, is there any other case? Because I think of it like someone is selling North Korea like uniforms for their military. Are they doing it accidentally? Do they know? I don't know. Like, obviously, if they know, then it's illegal. But it's like, I don't know. It's tough.
Would it be like Pegasus sales to NGOs? Is that where you're going?
Kind of. I just feel like it's interesting that they're saying, okay, well, ransomware, you can't pay the ransom payment because we don't know where it's going. But then, like, I guess they do have a lot of things applying, like not dealing with sanctioned countries in any way, right? Like KYC and all the other like regulatory controls. It seems like basically the government's just really gung-ho about controlling money that flows to sanctioned countries indirectly, even. So that's my guess, but who knows? I mean, it could just totally be, political thing.
It's a complex issue, no doubt about it.
We'll keep an eye on it.
What else should we talk about?
We probably have time for one more article. So who has a closer?
One thing that I did want to say, there were 2 articles in the collection that had to do with follow-up on CrowdStrike. And I know we're all overdone with CrowdStrike. But I did notice that there was the one article that talked about how CrowdStrike thanked hackers with action figures and gratitude. And I thought, that's really cool. They're giving back to the community, because I'm sure that there's a lot of people in IT that had to put in massive hours. I know massive hours trying to undo the damage there. And giving back, even in a token thing, the action figures, whatever, it's about the thought. It's about recognition and acknowledgement of the fact that a lot of people put in hard work on this. The other thing, and this is where I like to see lessons learned, is that CrowdStrike is bringing in, where is it?
A patch management company.
Patch management specialist.
Yeah, Action One.
And that, I think, as a recovering developer, as someone who has seen how poorly formatted code really can have massive, unexpected consequences, the fact that they're taking this step to better manage their updating process to have their patches be handled more responsibly. I see this as a very positive outcome of a really, really lousy situation, lousy event. And so I'm hoping that it will have positive outcomes going forward. And I wish that more companies did take their patch management more seriously. Not only the people who are applying the patches, but the people who are developing the patches. So
Yeah.
that was something that I wanted to just bring up.
I feel like the optics of it are really interesting. It's like, hey, we messed up. Let's go buy a company. That'll fix it. It's like it's the equivalent of like buying your, your spouse who's angry at you because you forgot their anniversary. Here's some flowers. Like,
well, okay,
oh, that never happens.
There is that, but also they're buying a company that specializes in something where they don't have advanced domain knowledge. They should, but they don't.
It makes sense.
So,
it's just
so
funny.
I
as
see
a
that
token
as
gesture.
commendable. And
Okay, but you can't patch
big
stupid.
They're certainly big enough they can afford it.
But, I mean, you're right, Kelly, but it is the equivalent of, dear shareholders, we're sorry. Here's a bouquet called Action 1. I don't know.
I think there's much more to this story than what we think there is. Delta obviously had an IT meltdown of epic proportions. I would like to see their BCDR plan. I don't think it's a patching issue.
Yeah, so we're running a little longer, but there's an article that has been personally recommended by our very own Wade Wells, which is basically Microsoft clapping back against CrowdStrike, I guess. We need to find the actual article, so stay tuned.
Against Delta, right?
Delta sucks. That's what the article... Yeah, so here's the article. Has anyone actually read this? Because I didn't know about it until 4 seconds ago.
I saw it. I didn't get a chance to read it.
Let's read it live. Hopefully there's nothing in here. Okay, so basically Microsoft clapped back. They said their outages, which were caused by their buggy software, were misleading. Let's see. They tried to sue Microsoft, and they tried to sue CrowdStrike, by the way.
So you know what it is. It's legal theater, not security theater, and that's what's getting played out here.
Yeah, well, there's the kicker. Scroll back up, Ryan. So this is kind of what we were alluding to last week on the show, and we were joking, and apparently it was real. But basically, they said the real kicker is our preliminary reviews suggest that Delta, unlike its competitors, apparently has not modernized its IT infrastructure, either for the benefit of its customers or its pilots and flight attendants. That's a pretty hard burn. In the legal world, that's the equivalent of like just a slap across the face.
A yo mama complaint.
That is a yo mama. Yeah. Why didn't they just say you use Windows 2000? Bam. But yeah, we don't actually know what they use. Probably not Windows 2000, or else it would have not blue screened because it couldn't run CrowdStrike.
Does Delta still stand for doesn't ever leave the airport?
It does now.
Well, it used to. Oh my God. They used to have a horrible track record on canceled flights. I don't know if it's gotten any better.
I don't think any. I mean, there was the Southwest apocalypse from a firewall that went down. Last or 2 years ago, we talked about it on the news. There was like Southwest had one rented firewall that went down and caused their entire 800 cancellations or something like that. There's who knows. Basically, airlines, they really are. It's a weird move from an executive perspective because they're exposing themselves to a ton of discovery and other legal processes that probably aren't going to go super well for them. And they're just kind of going to get dunked on, but I guess maybe not.
Do care. The conversation is around due care. And if in the courtroom, they can prove that Delta did not follow due care when it came to IT process and procedure and good hygiene, it could go very poorly.
Yeah, for sure.
Can there be a, Kelly, is it, can either side basically get another airline in? Look at that quote in the article where they said American and United got online much faster than Delta. Can Microsoft somehow get one of those other airlines, testifying? I can't imagine they can subpoena them. It's not criminal. Oh, Really? That sounds great.
That would be really funny. They'd be like, all right, now our expert witness, the one IT guy who works at United and rebooted 86,000 computers in 4 seconds with Ansible. And then he's like, yeah, I don't know. I just ran the playbook. Thanks. Anyway, bye. I mean, it would be amazing. Obviously, the legal situation is usually where we get the most. That's where we get to take out the popcorn and really enjoy a yummy snack. But we'll see how it goes.
Well, and
Subscribe,
Jay-
I guess.
And I'll add one other thing. Remember that I can't say his name. The Secretary of Transportation has opened up an investigation into this. So they probably are going to be looking at statistics from other airlines and comparing their performance to Delta's performance.
That's
Sure.
awesome. Pete Buttigieg, I think.
Say it as fast as you can 3 times.
Okay. Buttigieg. No, I can't do it. Yeah, you're right.
All right.
It's really
Yeah,
hard.
Kelly, I swear, like if we weren't where we are on time, I'd say like you should like I think we all probably need to know more about this about the due care side because I know that the executives at companies probably talk a lot about figuring out what their due care or due diligence or whatever it's called. I so don't know about this stuff. What their requirement is, and they're all looking at it. But I think is due care always compared against your peers, like your peer industry, like peers in your industry, or can it be, or is it widened? How does it work?
It depends on who's defining it. So part of the reason why the CIS critical controls got such traction in the state of California was the then Attorney General, who shall remain nameless, said that the CIS controls were a standard of due care, regardless of what industry you were in.
Cool.
All right. Well, I guess
Thanks.
we'll have to have that discussion in another episode. But
Wow, did
Follow
that
along.
just pop the balloon there?
I will say you did kind of Beetlejuice the Secretary of Transportation, so hopefully he shows up and explains for us. But yeah. All right. Let's
He only made me
let's,
do it.
let's close this out, and we'll see you all next week. Bye bye.